My sister's wedding was funded by our parents, but they dropped the bill on me last minute. I made sure they'd never forget it. I'm 35 years old, a software engineer based in Seattle, and the firstborn child of parents who built their fortune in the real estate industry. My parents, now in their late 60s, have always been more invested in their business and social image than in their children. Growing up, I was raised by a series of nannies, while my parents traveled, attended galas, and maintained their lavish lifestyle. They were young, ambitious, and uninterested in the mundane responsibilities of parenting. I learned early on that I was more of an afterthought than a priority. 8 years after I was born, my sister Clara came into the world. Her arrival marked the beginning of a stark contrast in how my parents treated us. Clara was everything they had ever wanted in a child. Beautiful, charismatic, and effortlessly charming. She had my mother's striking green eyes and my father's golden hair, and she quickly became the center of their world. While I was the quiet, introverted child who preferred books to parties, Clara was the life of every gathering, the perfect poster child for our family's image. It didn't take long for me to realize that my parents' neglect wasn't due to their busy schedules. It was because they simply didn't care enough about me. I was average in every way, and in their eyes, that wasn't enough. Clara, on the other hand, was their golden child, the embodiment of their success and perfection. Over the years, I grew accustomed to the disparity in how we were treated. I attended an elite private school and later graduated from a prestigious university, but none of my achievements ever seemed to matter to them. They were too busy spoiling Clara to notice. Clara, for all her charm, lacked ambition. She was an average student who dropped out of college after her first year, opting instead to live off our parents' wealth. They gave her a cushy job at their company, but she rarely showed up, and when she did, she caused chaos. I heard stories from relatives about her temper tantrums and the drama she stirred up in the office, but my parents always shielded her from criticism. To them, Clara could do no wrong. Meanwhile, I worked tirelessly to build a life of my own. I landed a high-paying job at a tech firm in Seattle and climbed the corporate ladder through sheer determination. My parents' indifference had taught me the value of self-reliance, and I was determined to succeed on my own terms. Despite my accomplishments, I never felt like I measured up in their eyes. Every family gathering was a reminder of how little I mattered to them. When I met my wife, Elena, everything changed. She was a graphic designer with a passion for art and a warmth that instantly drew me in. Elena filled the void that my parents had left in my life, and for the first time, I felt truly loved and understood. We dated for a year before deciding to get married. Our wedding was a small, intimate affair in Santorini, Greece, with only our closest friends and family in attendance. It was everything we had dreamed of, and I was proud to share that moment with the woman who had changed my life. Clara, however, was less than thrilled. She had always been jealous of my success, and our wedding only seemed to amplify her resentment. My parents, too, seemed uncomfortable with the attention I was receiving. They had always painted themselves as the perfect parents, and my achievements were a reminder of how little they had contributed to my success. After the wedding, I noticed a growing distance between us. My attempts to reconnect with them were met with indifference, and I eventually stopped trying. A few months later, I learned that Clara was planning her own wedding. My aunt, who had always been on my side, told me that Clara had been inspired by my wedding and wanted something even more extravagant. She had convinced her boyfriend to propose and had planned a lavish ceremony in Tuscany, Italy. The only problem was that neither Clara nor her boyfriend could afford it, so they turned to our parents for funding. My parents, eager to please their golden child, agreed to foot the bill. I wasn't surprised when they didn't involve me in the planning process. I had long since accepted that I was an outsider in my own family. What did surprise me, however, was the dinner invitation I received a few weeks before the wedding. My parents had never invited Elena and me to their home before, and I naively assumed it was an attempt to mend our relationship. I couldn't have been more wrong. The dinner started off pleasantly enough, but it quickly became clear that my parents had an ulterior motive. They revealed that their business had suffered significant losses, and that they could no longer afford Clara's wedding. They asked me to cover the costs, framing it as a favor to my sister. I was furious, but I agreed on 2 conditions. I would have full control over the wedding arrangements, and I would be allowed to give a speech at the reception. My parents, desperate to save face, agreed without hesitation. The wedding took place in Maui, Hawaii, a location I had chosen as a compromise between Clara's original plan and my parents' budget. Clara was visibly unhappy with the arrangements, but I didn't care. I was there for one reason only: to deliver my speech. When the time came, I stood before the crowd and began to speak. "Ladies and gentlemen," I said, "I want to take a moment to thank my parents for giving me the opportunity to speak today." I could see the confusion on their faces as I continued. For years, my parents ignored me. They never supported me or showed me the love and affection they showed my sister. But now that they need something from me, they come crawling back. The room fell silent as my words sank in. My parents looked embarrassed, and Clara seemed on the verge of tears. "I'm not bitter," I continued. "In fact, I'm grateful. This wedding has allowed me to show my parents just how successful and accomplished I am, and I have to say, it feels pretty good." I went on to detail the years of neglect I had endured and how it had shaped me into the person I was today. By the time I finished, the room was in stunned silence. I walked over to Clara and hugged her. "I'm so happy for you," I said sincerely. "I hope you have a wonderful life with your husband." With that, I left the reception with Elena, leaving my parents and sister behind. Later that night, Clara came to my hotel room. She was crying, and for the first time in years, we had an honest conversation. She told me she had never known about my side of the story and had always assumed I didn't care about the family. Our parents had painted me as the cold, distant sibling, and she had believed them. I apologized for ruining her wedding day, but she assured me that our parents deserved it. A week later, my mother called to tell me that Clara had stopped speaking to my father. My speech had opened her eyes to the truth, and she was struggling to come to terms with it. My father, on the other hand, was furious and had cut all ties with me. My mother begged me to intervene, but I refused. I had spent my entire life trying to earn their love and approval, and I was done. Yesterday, I did something I never thought I would do. I invited my entire family to dinner. It was time to address the years of hurt and resentment that had divided us. During the dinner, I confronted my parents about their favoritism and neglect. My father was stubborn and refused to admit his mistakes, but I could see the guilt in his eyes. My mother, on the other hand, apologized for not being there for me. I forgave her, but I made it clear that our relationship would never be the same. By the end of the night, I had managed to mend the rift between Clara and my father. It felt surreal to be the one holding our family together, but I knew it was a role I had earned. For the first time in my life, I felt like I belonged. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more heartfelt and thought-provoking content. Your support means the world to us.